often had with my friends when we're talking about love and dating, I think when we go for dinner, we often have this as well, is it becoming harder because of the design and the nature of the modern world for us to find love and to keep it? Because, once upon a time, my argument might assert that we lived in villages, there was 20 people there. I told a story the other day to my team that I worked in this call center in Manchester, 20 of us in this call center many, many years ago. And first couple of days in, wasn't interested in anybody. I got 6 months in, fell in love with the girl next to me. And I almost equate that to like the village. We would have a very small context, so it was easier to find love. Is the design of the modern world making it more difficult, do you think, for us to find love?
So I think, well, simple answer is it's definitely added a layer of complication because now love is treated like shopping. We shop for partners like we shop for shit on Amazon. It's like you scroll through, you find one that looks good and you click like.
Good reviews.
And good reviews. Look, it's definitely convenient and it's definitely made life a lot easier. And you never have to deal with rejection because you don't know if they swiped left on you. You just assume that they never saw your picture, right? Like it doesn't actually say rejected, And I think the problem with it is it's grass is always greener because it's so easy, to just go swiping. And sometimes you treat it like Instagram. I've done this where I've sat in my bed late at night because instead of looking at social media, I'm looking at a dating app and I'm swiping right, like I'm clicking like on a post, and then it says you're connected. I'm like, damn it, because I don't actually want to like go through the effort of like connecting. I was just liking the post, Scott Galloway talks about this. I can't remember what the numbers are. But the point is there's a massive disparity of men that just don't ever connect. And there's nothing more dangerous in a modern society than a lonely man, right? And if you look at terrorism and if you look at mass homicide and things like that, it's very often a lonely man, And you add in sex and incels and the Middle East, for example, it's 25% during the height of terrorism, a bunch of years ago, it was 25% unemployment in the region in a shame-based society where you have young men living at home and who aren't employed and they've never had sex because there's no sex before marriage. And how are you ever going to meet a girl when you live at home and you don't have a job? And then all of a sudden that stress comes out somewhere. And I think we don't talk about sex and sexuality as a part of our other behaviors. I mean, I for some reason, because we think it's bad to connect, sex life with how people show up in the world. But you take somebody who's sexually frustrated man in their mid to late 20s, and all of that pressure and insecurity and, now desperation, like it comes out in horrible ways. And the need to exert control comes out in horrible ways. Different conversation. Scott Galloway, I said, has some fantastic numbers on this. So I think, the dating apps aren't necessarily fair. That's one thing, It's not like everybody's going to find somebody. But I do think that there's something wrong with shopping for people. And the thing that I lament about dating apps that's really, and maybe this is just me, because I hate first dates.
Oh, God.
The worst. But the reason,
why do you hate them?
Pre-dating apps, or let's not pre-dating apps, it's just when there's no dating app being used, the way that we traditionally would meet somebody is you meet them at a party, at a dinner party, you meet them at the pub, you bump into them at a museum, you make small talk, or you eye them up from across the room and there's some attraction, and then one of you musters up the courage to go up and start flirting and have a conversation. And at some point you say, can I get your number? I'd love to continue this. And they'll say yes or no. And the flirting and the initial attraction has already happened. And so the first date is actually the first date after the initial attraction and flirting. Now with dating apps, the flirting, the initial attraction, the attempt to court someone is all happening simultaneously on the first date. There's a lot of pressure for a first meeting where, when you meet somebody in IRL, it's like, it's happened. The initial attraction has already happened. There's no expectation they're not going to look like their picture. They're going to look like exactly what they're going to look like when you met them.
And it's dinner, so there could be 3 hours allocated. It could be expensive meal.
Whatever it is. I think there's nothing quote unquote wrong with online dating. I just think we like everything Like there's nothing wrong with online shopping. But there's the reason that bricks and mortar stores still exist and that Amazon is opening stores. It's because people like to go shopping. It's a hunter-gatherer thing. Like there's entertainment in it. It's more than the purchase. It's more than the transaction. It's the browsing we enjoy. You know, it's in our DNA, you know? And I think that there's nothing wrong with online, but I think that making an effort to do, you know, in real life things should be included, should be balanced. You know, it's like everything in the world, I'm a great believer in balance. I don't usually rail for or against something. I'm usually talking about balances and imbalances. Even social media, like so much has been said about, you know, what I've said about social media and millennials, et cetera. I'm not against it. I'm talking about balance, and it's out of balance. You know, even corporate culture, you know, I'm not against many of the modern things. I'm against the imbalance. You know, capitalism is unbalanced in its current form. So when we usually feel discomfort or anger or frustration, it's usually due to the imbalances. Isn't that where this conversation started? You know, that, you know, feelings of loneliness, something's out of balance, you know? And this is why I call it fitness rather than health, because fitness is the attempt to maintain equilibrium, to find balance. Sometimes it tips one way and sometimes it tips the other way. And you're constantly working to maintain balance. That's what all of this stuff is. Business is the same. You're an entrepreneur. It's feast or famine. Like it's never the right amount, you know, and you're constantly working on balance. And I think that's the strongest argument for playing the long game, which is it's always teetering. That means you have to constantly be alert and constantly be working, because if it tips too far good, it's going to tip the other way. Don't rest on your laurels. Make sure you have got money in the bank. Like stock markets just don't go straight up. It's not how it works, right? At the same time, when it goes the other way, it's like, don't worry, this too shall pass. This also won't last. Start working on some skills that you maybe haven't worked on. Start reaching out to people. Start apologizing. You know, if you've been so self-involved with yourself and now you're in a lonely place, sometimes being lonely, like, is calling up a friend and saying, I've been an asshole and I am sorry. And I'm in a really dark place right now. And I'm just looking back thinking, oh my God, I've been so self-involved that there's no one around me to be there for. And I am so, so sorry. You know, and again, it goes right back to everything we were talking about, which is it's accountable for me versus victim of me, you know, that I'm not a victim of the world around me, you know?